Welcome to the Coffee Time Exotics channel. Today, I'm going to talk about my favorite coffee bean, the Mocha Coffee Bean. Um, I'll try not to be too dry. I'm going to be reading some information because there's a lot of it. So this will be information packed, but I'll fill in my own words, particular aspects of it. So here is the Mocha Coffee. Da, da, da. And first, I'll show you physically a difference. Let me click here. All right, if you look at the standard coffee, standard beans, you're used to seeing them. You look at the middle, that's bourbon rosado. Those are a little bit smaller. And then if you look at the mocha, they're itty bitty tiny beans. Now, I may show this at some point in the future as I'm making it, maybe grinding it, holding it in my hand, but these are little bitty things. They're the size of little split peas for like split pea soup. Very different. They're the only beans that look like this. The reason they're called mocha is because the place of origin of these, going back centuries, was Yemen. And everybody says, well, Ethiopia, that's where all coffee was founded. Well, there's different varieties, but the mocha first appeared in Yemen. And there was a port city in Yemen called Mocha. And these were shipped out of there in the 1500s. That's when they were kind of discovered by Europe. And so they were shipped out of that port city. And because it was called Mocha Port City, this particular variety is called mocha. Kind of makes sense, right? So bear with me as I do a little bit of reading here. What exactly are mocha coffee beans? Despite what you may think, mocha coffee beans aren't flavored with chocolate. That's real important. Coffee bean came first. The idea of the mocha coffee or mochaccino came later based on the flavor of this coffee. The name comes from the port of Mocha in Yemen. I mentioned that these beans originally, mocha beans are small, round, and have a unique, slightly irregular shape compared to other coffee beans. The distinct flavor profile of mocha beans, it's famous for its natural hints of chocolate, but it also has a fruity and wine-like undertone, even slightly sweet sometimes. It's typically rich, bold, and complex, with a deep earthiness that sets it apart from everyday coffee. Pretty good description. Many describe it as a mix of dark chocolate, red berries, and a hint of spice. Mocha beans have a medium to full body, making them perfect for espresso or slow brew methods like a pour over. Probably to get the best flavor out of it, a pour over, maybe even an AeroPress. Mocha pot, you have to be careful when you grind it that you take the fines out of it. In a mocha pot, you want to have a medium grind. But if you don't have a really good grinder, you end up with a lot of fines, like coffee powder, coffee dust. That'll really muddy it up, and it'll actually alter the flavor a little bit. It'll throw it off. So if you're going to use a mocha pot or a French press, which uses a medium coarse grind, make sure that it's a true grind. It's not like a lot of little small ones or great big ones. If you're not sure, you can actually take the bag to a place that grinds coffee. They'll run it through the machine. Typically, they won't even charge you for it. Now let's get to the crux of it. Why are mocha coffee beans so expensive? And they are. First, there's a limited supply, which I'm experiencing myself. They're grown in small family-owned farms, mostly out of curiosity, out of love for coffee, and they're very scarce. Now, Imagine this. In that picture, I'll show that picture again. Coffee is sold by weight. You have these little tiny coffee beans versus everything else. Right off the bat, bean for bean, it's half the weight. Also, the plants do not produce as many coffee beans as most other varieties. Commercial varieties will produce a crap load of coffee beans where these don't. So you have half the weight on plots of land that produce maybe a third or a quarter of the amount of beans. So far less beans, and those beans weigh half as much. But you go through all the same labor, and it's taking up the land that something else could have grown on. It makes for very small yields. Now, I get this from a farm in particular here in Candio, in a place called Cambaya, right outside of town. And they grow some of these varieties like the Bourbon Rosado and the Mocha because they love coffee and they experiment with it, but they make their money on the other types of coffee, the typical kinds of coffee, which, none of them are cheap. It's Colombian coffee. But these are very special coffees. Very few places will even bother growing them because of the problem of the yield. They're in business to make money. But if you are a family business and you truly love coffee, you're going to play with these. And so that's what we've got. Just like all the other coffee beans here in Candio with the family farms, the beans are hand picked. Now, if you get to a commercial area like in Caldas around Manizales here in Colombia, or one out in the valley, those are larger areas, and they use these machines that actually will vibrate and they'll shake the bean off, and or the cherry, and they'll go through, and then they'll go through again a few days later, and so it's mechanically done. But on these small farms, and the farm where I get it, they hire people to go through and pick the red ones. Go through, pick the red ones. Or in Bourbon Rosado's case, those are kind of a pink cherry, hence the name Rosado, pink. So they'll hand pick, and then a few days later, they have to go back through because the ones that weren't ripe became ripe. And so you go back and you pick those. They have to do that 3 or 4 times. Certainly labor intensive. So it's definitely an issue. And then they sun dry these. These are not put in a baked oven. Now, there are ovens and things like that out there. Particularly commercial operations are much more efficient, but small farms, particularly in small batches like this, you're not going to invest in a lot of equipment that is taking care of a unique type of small batch where certain equipment won't even work on something like these small beans. And so, again, labor intensive. Now, when they do sun dry these, that actually enhances these complex flavors, but it also increases production time. So they're sitting out there for quite a period of time. And then when they're ready, they gather them up. They've got to wash them off. You go through quite a process, and then they've got to dry them. Now, exporting is a bit of an issue. When I got my license, I thought, oh, I'm all set. Well, you're not all set. You have to go through a series of certifications. And part of that process, you have to itemize out specifically what varieties you're going to sell, what quantities are you going to sell them in, where do you intend to sell them? there's a whole series of things. So I opted to focus on the ones I'm most interested in: Tabi, Geisha, Bourbon Rosado, and Mocha. Mocha would not leave it out. If I only had to do one, it'd be Mocha. So so I had to register exactly the beans that I want to sell, and you pay for this type of process. So it's not very practical in many cases because of the small yield and hence the lack of profit, the loss of weight, all of that. Um, your typical farmer in Colombia is not going to go through those expenses. He's really going to focus on the bread and butter. And the beans that he does produce, he's pretty much doing it for him and his family and aunts and uncles, friends, things like that. Maybe Christmas, they give off a special bean. I come along and it's like, man, I want to share this. I have, as many of you know, I have a live show that I've had for 7 or 8 years called Coffee Time. And it's every Sunday at 11 o'clock from here in Colombia. And I talk about all things Colombia and I'll talk about coffee. And of course, people that are sitting in the United States, my primary audience, although I have people from all around the world, maybe one day I can register for them too. But right now, so I don't go bankrupt, I had to focus where the largest market is. Um, so obviously, my focus is going to be on these beans here, and we'll try to financially get through it. Um, Mocha Coffee for centuries had a reputation as being one of the best coffees in the world. The the Geisha is the most expensive coffee in the world, and it's a good coffee. And for a while, I thought maybe it's my favorite. I can't tell. I really like this bourbon rosado. It's before I had the mocha. There was no doubt when I had the mocha. It's like, oh my God, man, love this stuff. But the geisha has a lot of hype behind it. And I'm not saying it's not deserved, but the more hype that there is, the more demand there is. For example, in Dubai, there's a coffee shop there that sells it by the cup, $200, the equivalent of $200. There's a place, actually, there's a number of places in Japan that will sell the geisha coffee, $160 a cup. In my mind, these are even better. And historically, they have been known, respected as being the best or right up there with whatever your personal taste might be. I don't think this kind, if you like coffee, this is not going to be the kind you go, oh, I really don't like that. No, you're going to like it. But your personal preference might maybe turn to geisha, which is a little bit brighter, a little more acidic. This is less acidic. I like a little acidity, but I don't like a very acidic coffee. If you do, that's geisha. It's when I say brighter, it's far from the chocolatey end of things. It's more in the bright fruit kind of sensation. Best way to brew, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but the best way to brew mocha coffee, if you do espresso, they'll give you a rich, intense shot with a naturally sweet finish. Um, the intensity might put people off. I like it espresso, but it's not my favorite way. I usually will do a mocha pot, but I didn't like it with mocha pot for a while because I didn't understand the grind. So it took me a little bit. I figured out I really need a clean medium grind. Once I did that, it all changed and it became my favorite way to do it. French press. French press is really good. You'll get bold, earthy type flavors, but it keeps its smoothness. It's a smooth coffee. I don't think it's the best way, but if you do it with French press, make sure you use the medium coarse grind. Then you got the pour over. It is the best. It is the best way to do it, like Chemex or V60. You want to taste all the subtle fruity notes, pick up everything. It's the way to go. And then, of course, this is my favorite mocha latte. Cook it up as a espresso or mocha pot. I do it with a mocha pot, and then I'll put it in with some steamed milk and a little bit of cacao powder, or if I don't have that, maybe even a little bit of chocolate. In a pinch, I'll even put like a half a teaspoon of Hershey syrup, just a touch of chocolate. It actually accents the flavor of this coffee. The coffee, when you say something has a chocolatey flavor, when you're talking about coffee or any of these other flavors, fruits like red fruits, what you're really talking about is the sensation you get when you eat chocolate. So it's not like you're going to drink this and say, "Oh, this is chocolate," but it reminisces. It hints of chocolate. You drink it, and you think of things chocolate. It doesn't have a direct chocolate flavor, but you get a chocolatey sensation when you drink it. And all of these fruits and spices and all of that, it's more of a sensation because until you get used to what people are talking about here, you try and you go, "What are you talking about? Chocolate? It's coffee. It tastes like coffee to me. It's just different. It's good, but you don't really know why." But the more you look at something and consider it, the more you try it, the more you play around with processing and grind and that sort of thing, you start to bring out those characteristics that you just kind of blew past before. And so that's what we're talking about. And that's my favorite is the mocha latte. I have 1 cup of coffee every day, and that's in the morning. And it's usually a mocha latte. Now I'll make a mocha latte with the bourbon rosado or even a regular bean, but nothing beats this, in my opinion. Now, because of its rarity, authentic mocha coffee is not something you're going to find in a regular grocery store or beanery. This is rare. You're gonna have to look for a specialty coffee roaster, and even then, there's a good chance they're not going to have it. Oh, we expect to get some in about 60 days, and you have to be really careful. Something I never realized is how much coffee out there is fraudulent. And that's, as I learned that, that's why I put such an emphasis on taking the time and spending the money and going through the hassle of all these certifications, the authentication of the single origin authentication, because I don't ever want anybody to think that what they're getting from me is not 100% what I'm telling them it is. There's a lot of it out there that are not. Let's just put it that way. Even inside here in Colombia, they sell to each other. "Oh yeah, that's a geisha," and you just like, "Oh, it's not." But you can expect to pay typical pricing between $30 and $100 a pound. Now, I'm not $100 a pound. It's tempting. That depends on the quality and the sourcing. I've had these tested, these grayed out to be exactly what I represent it to be. I'm very happy. Is it worth the price? If you love a rich, complex, unique coffee flavors, absolutely it's worth it. It's an experience. Is it something that you're going to want to continue with? That depends on your taste. I don't know anybody who would drink this and say, well, I don't like that. But everybody has their favorites. So you drink it, you're going to like it. I would venture to say that most people that experience this and go through a bag's worth, so they try different ways of preparation, they're going to be kind of addicted to it. But you're going to have some people that say, well, I'm just trying to get a buzz. Well, that's not the kind of thing we're talking about. But the price reflects hard work, history of this coffee bean, the craftsmanship, because it is all about hand craftsmanship. They're also a piece of coffee history. One day I'll maybe tell the story. I mentioned it started to become popular in the 1500s. There's a lot of room for that history, and it's there. But coffee in the form of the Mocha Coffee Bean, they're a true treasure in the coffee world. They're deep, chocolatey flavor, sort of, combined with their historical significance and rare availability, which is one of the keys, make them one of the most luxurious and expensive coffees you can buy. Through me, not really. I will quickly mention, when I priced these out, I took the cost of the bag, cost of the licenses, amortized those, what you would typically do in a business, and figured out, what do I need to recover on a bag of coffee? Well, one of the things I quickly realized is selling a bag of coffee is considerably, almost exponentially more expensive than if I sell them 2 at a time. Hence, you can only buy 2 bags of coffee. Keeps price reasonable for you compared to what it would have to be. And I'm not doing this to lose money, so I'm not gonna eat that difference. It's better to just do it by 2. The special coffee, you order it now. There's a good chance when you come back to order it, you might not see it for another 2, 3, 4 months. There's only 2 harvests a year. I've got one coming up in March in about 3 weeks, and that'll have to last me for another 6 months or so until this fall. So it will go quick. So once I figured out what I needed to sell a coffee for to recover the costs and make some kind of profit, website costs, all the things that go into it, I then went to look at a place like Amazon to see what are coffee selling for there. What I found was good coffee, but not to the level of Mocha, was being sold for what I'm selling this coffee for, right in that ballpark. And some of these, I did find one place that was selling these. I have no idea the quality. It wasn't in Colombia. I believe it was either Panama or Costa Rica. And they were selling it for about triple. I don't know how much they're selling, but it was for sale for about triple the cost. Because it's a passion, kind of my hobby, that has to pay for itself. The price is not overinflated. So if you go to Coffee Time, coffeetimeexotics.com, you can buy it. I don't know how long it's going to last, but when I run out, you won't be able to click on any link to buy it. It'll stay out of stock. And that's it on the Mocha. If you have any questions, write in. If there's anything in particular you want to see, write in. I'll be putting up all kinds of things. I'll talk about the bourbon rosado. I'll talk about preparations. I'll talk about more about the grinding. Again, if you want to see an actual coffee expert. The best I've ever seen is a guy who does YouTube videos named James Hoffman. James Hoffman. Unbelievable, fantastic, entertaining, knows what he's talking about. I'm not him. I'm sharing my experiences, but I've learned a lot from him. And I learned some of the appreciations from him. And then, of course, I've had so many visits to the, farms around here. Well, that's it for today. Feel free to be interactive. Feel free to make comments, write in. This channel is not monetized, but the coffee is. So likes are nice, but the comments are really important to me because I want to hear what you're thinking. Ciao.